Hi, I'm Jude from headfi.org, and on this episode of headfi TV, we have a couple of special guests, both from Campfire Audio. We have Ken Ball and Caleb Rosenau. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having me, Jude.
Now, normally when we have industry guests, they visit headfi HQ. For reasons that are quite obvious in the world right now, that's not really possible. And I would have loved to have had you guys here to discuss what we'll be talking about today. Because I'm pretty excited about the fact that you're launching 3 new IEMs today. And it would have been fun to have you here to talk about it, to even measure them together. So, you know, I've already measured them, but we'll get to that shortly. Can you tell us what the new IEMs are, when they'll be available? And because today is essentially the launch.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, we will be pushing them out today, and then we will be shipping them to customers on next week, so next Thursday on the.
Oh, so this is very quickly. Okay.
Yeah, 21st, and then so the 21st Andromeda 2020 and Solaris 2020 will be shipping, and then we're looking at currently June 18th for Era. So our all.
Okay. Well, I guess we should probably say what the models are. So the first one is the Andromeda 2020. There's 3 of them. There's the Andromeda 2020. There's the Era, which is a completely new model in that there's been no previous version of the Era, and then the Solaris 2020. So, I mean, let's start with the Andromeda 2020, because the Andromeda, I think, has probably been, I don't know, I'm not sure what your sales are like, but I'm guessing it's probably one of your most popular products ever. And so a new Andromeda, because you've had some limited edition models of it, but this is a new non-limited edition model. It's going to be a running model. Is it a replacement of the current Andromeda?
Yeah, this will be a permanent model for us. Yeah, the one that the 2020 is going to be around as the staple, the Andromeda.
Okay.
And we made just like any good company, we're always trying to build a better product, more stable, more, you know, just everything that we do, we try to make incremental improvements.
It looks a lot like the previous Andromeda. I actually wondered if you'd sent me another of the previous Andromeda, but then I listened to it and it's not like the previous Andromeda. I mean, it's certainly familial. It has the Andromeda sound. So I definitely want to talk about what is different about the 2020, because it looks a lot alike from the outside. But I know it's not the same. So what is it?
Well, the appearance-wise, not much. The spout is a stainless steel, and it's got the familiar grill pattern on it. So instead of having 3 open bores, you have the grill in the front. And in that respect, that's the only thing externally that looks different. However, it's completely different on the inside in terms of our new sort of monolithic single part on the inside. So the inside is full. It's just a single solid piece, and that has several advantages. One is there's a much tighter build tolerance because it's just one part, and we were able to also do some pretty nice improvements with the sound bores because it's all one single part, and we use that sort of single monolithic boot across all 3 of these models that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's I have one rendering. We didn't have any other renderings for either the Andromeda 2020 or the Era internals, but we have this rendering that I think we're going to show right now. It's the Solaris 2020 internal, just so we can show that monolithic, that boot that you're referring to, where the drivers are mounted in there, and the acoustic pathways are also in that boot, correct? So it's the drivers that forms the acoustic pathways. I think that's very interesting from a tuning standpoint. It probably gives you the ability to do a lot more sort of finite tuning as you were coming up with the final voicing of the product. So this is the Solaris 2020 we showed, but it's similar in concept, though. I know that the driver complements are different because we're showing the Solaris, or we were showing the Solaris 2020 internal, but it's going to look, that boot is going to have some similar counterpart in each of in the Andromeda and the Era as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And then, like, what are some of the other key advantages that come with that? So there's build consistency, you mentioned. That's because it is now a single part. It's replacing multiple parts, correct?
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in here, previously we were really focused on, 3D printing all of the tube assemblies, right? We were really focused on controlling the parts, but each earphone had many sub-assemblies to it, right? And so each sub-assembly had its own sort of tolerance to it, and we would control for it and that kind of thing. Now, when we went to build custom earphones, we had to have that challenge of like people were wanting Andromeda as a custom fit earphone. And so it was like, well, how are we going to do that? Because it's so reliant on the way that the tubes are, the way that the shell is, the way that the whole thing is. It's like impossible to make it immediately custom. So when we went to design it, we had to really rethink a lot of things. But in doing so, we were able to basically make Andromeda into a single shell. So that all of the drivers and the relationship of the drivers are in a single unit, right? Which we could custom fit then to anyone's ear. But we learned a lot in doing that process. And so here we folded all of that sort of thinking back into the universal product from our custom work.
Gotcha. But with the Andromeda 2020, to me, it still sounds, well, it does. It sounds like an improved Andromeda, which is kind of, I think, what you'd want. I don't know that it wouldn't make sense to call it an Andromeda 2020 if it sounded like completely different than what people would expect from an Andromeda. But it's better though.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same DNA. It's just we kind of did a sort of a nice tuning tweak to it, and also the single boot, I think, also helps sonically too.
Yeah, it just provides a ton more clarity, a lot more. Even though resolution is like a sort of an ambiguous term, I think that when you listen to them side by side, it's pretty evident that where the improvements are sonically.
No, I'll give you that. I think the clarity statement is accurate. It is there is definitely better clarity with the new Andromeda 2020. Sorry for interrupting you. So go ahead. You were saying, because I'm trying to understand like where that was mostly gained.
Yeah, and so I think it just makes sense for us to incorporate these, like our new thinking about tuning, our new thinking about builds into our, sort of trademark products, such as Andromeda and Solaris, And so I think that people really, Andromeda is one of our most beloved products. And so people genuinely like it a lot. And so we don't take changing it very, lightly. But when we did the builds and made it side by side, it was appreciable enough to where it, merited a new release.
Right. Yeah, because I mean that is I bet you that is an interesting thing. So when you're doing these limited edition versions, right, like the Andromeda Gold, for example, you have a little more flexibility because you knew you were making something different. Limited edition here, you're effectively making the replacement for your most popular model. Yeah. So I imagine that's fairly challenging. I think it was. I honestly can't think of any anything that I would necessarily prefer at all about the previous one. This is, I think you did a great job honoring what it is people want from an Andromeda, but just making it better without, yeah. So this speaks more to the Andromeda than, say, the Andromeda Gold, which was definitely a different creature. Now, the one thing I will say is from a channel matching standpoint, once again, like the Andromeda Gold, I mean, we talked about it. I might have mentioned it in one of the preview videos, the CanJam preview videos. The Andromeda Gold had what might be the tightest channel matching that I had ever seen, left-right channel matching in any headphone, whether in-ear, over-ear, or otherwise. It was really tight, but I'm also seeing similarly tight tolerances with this. Would you say that has, in this case, something to do with maybe the design? Is that part and parcel of like...
It's part of it, but I think the single boot will... What you'll see is the tolerances are much tighter throughout the entire production. So
okay,
yeah, so the channel matching is still really good, but more importantly, like the overall production is very tight now. So and that has to do with the internal boot because there's a lot less parts, a lot less assembly. There's a lot less micro tolerances. Of the nature.
Oh,
Yeah,
go
and
ahead.
our team is also getting better and better at their jobs. I mean, as we like do this for years now, it's like people are getting really, really good. And so we're getting like our, builders who like, 3 years ago were just like, how do I make an earphone? Now are like, fully realizing that, how to really dial in their process. So
How did they react? How did the team react? The guys who make them, how did they react to the boot design? I mean, that from an assembly standpoint, I bet you that was probably pretty welcomed.
yeah, I think there's always a learning curve about anything that's new, but I think that everyone's really excited about it. I think the benefits are immediately appreciable to everyone involved.
Oh, I think so too.
But,
Oh, I
and
think so
also,
too. I think so too.
Also, I might want to add that the engineer that works for us, this guy's brilliant, and I mean the amount of work that went into doing the engineering to do that was just crazy. I mean, it is like I cannot believe it fits into that shell, all the little parts. So he did a fantastic job. So we're really proud of our engineering staff.
I agree. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, and we measured it at some point in the video. We'll have to probably I haven't shown you guys the measurements yet. You've sent me. I know I've seen your measurements. I haven't sent you mine yet because we've been kind of working on a tight time frame here. But I actually measured. I think the Andromeda I did on both the 45CA. We have the GRAS 45CA, and then also the new Brüel Kjær 5128, which is the green man behind me. So hopefully we'll be able to show both of those in the video. So that's going to be the new primary fixture we use. So you'll be seeing more measurements coming from the Brüel Kjær 5128. But yeah, I haven't actually compared the measurement of the old Andromeda on the 45CA to the new one. So I'm going just based on subjective impressions because I actually haven't overlaid them. But yeah, I would say that the Andromeda 2020, because I have the previous Andromeda here, is definitely more articulate. And that's the thing. I don't know if it has more measured treble energy, but I felt like I'm getting more detail in the treble as well. I'm not sure if that was part of the intent, or part of the tuning, but that's what I'm hearing. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think that's something I kind of, maybe some other Andromeda fans, if they had to change it, right, maybe this is something they'd want, is maybe a little more articulation. And mission accomplished. So congratulations on the Andromeda 2020. So now let's talk about the second model, which is there is no predecessor for, right? I mean, this is its own thing. This is the ERA, right? Did I pronounce it right? ARA, ERA. And this I find to be an interesting piece from a voicing standpoint, which we're going to get to after you guys explain the product, because several of your pieces, the Andromeda is definitely one of the more neutral sounding pieces, but some of your other pieces that are actually quite popular, some of your IEMs that you've released are pretty punchy, and this is definitely, to me, also kind of more in the more neutral vein. So, but let's before I get there, let's let you guys introduce the ERA and talk about what it is.
Yeah, I do want to say that the ERA is it does sort of build off some of our older models. Like to me, the ERA was more about taking the best elements from the Andromeda Gold and the Mixwave 10. And Mixwave 10 is like one of my favorites. And so there is sort of a blend of those two models. However, it takes elements from both of those. However, we did sort of change the low frequencies a little bit different in the ARA than those two, and it's sort of somewhat of a different approach. So it's in many respects it's a very new earphone for Campfire, because we wanted to accentuate the mids and the detail. This is a much more what I would consider, I don't know, more of an audiophile type earphone. I mean, Caleb, what's your impression on that?
Wait, Caleb, I'm sorry to interrupt, because Ken mentioned something that I think a lot of people might not be familiar with. So, I want to just make sure they understand what the Mixwave 10 is. Can you explain? You referred, because since we're talking about the ERA and that it was somehow inspired to some degree by the Mixwave 10, the Andromeda Gold, what is the Mixwave 10? Because that might be not very well known even in our community what that was.
Yeah, so the Mixwave 10 was a limited edition earphone we did with our distributor celebrating the 10 years um, of being in business together, right? So it was a celebration earphone. It came out at the end of last year. It was something, it was taking springboarding from Andromeda. It had a ceramic interior. It was a limited run, but it was sort of an improved. So a lot of the ideas that we ended up going forward with were introduced there. And as Ken is talking about, the Andromeda Gold was the first earphone with a crossover list design, right? So where we got rid of the crossover, and the Mixwave 10 just we found a way to get more resolution in those mids and highs. I don't think this one is like, this isn't the carbon copy of those,
Sure.
Because we're using different drivers, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. But just conceptually, a lot of those ideas.
Was the Mixwave 10 considered like an Andromeda variant?
It was, and
Yeah.
I'm constantly making models just for fun and tweaking it, and whatever works we use. And for some reason, that particular one was, fantastic. It was really, really good.
It sold out, didn't it?
You listened to it, yeah. You listened to it when you were.
I did.
It's quite nice. And so we took elements from the Mixwave 10 and the Andromeda Gold, and sort of mishmashed it and made a tweak to the low end, and there you go. You have the Aura.
Yeah, I really like the Mixwave 10. I heard it at the earphone show last year, and I missed that one. I should have picked one up right away, did not, and now it's gone. But now we have the Era, which isn't exactly like it, like you said, but there's some inspiration there. So let's talk about how, what the Era, where it's kind of positioned in the line, considering that it has some inspiration from the Mixwave 10 and the Andromeda Gold.
It does have inspiration from those two. However, like I was saying previously, the low frequency is quite a bit different than the rest of our lineup. It still has sort of that Campfire DNA, but I think it's more quality. It's a higher quality low end to mid section that is not as the SPL is a little bit lower, which then we improve the mid range and the high frequency. So I think it's more of like a connoisseurs type audiophile earphone for us. It's a 7-driver model with no crossover. So it's quite a bit different in terms of the low frequency than all of our other earphones.
Oh, I would say, compared to some of your bassier models, it's definitely on the flat. It's like a flatter tuning. I would say bass to mid. To me, it's more of a flatter tuning. I don't want to overuse the term, but I'm finding, it's starting to become one of the voicings, or in that range of voicings that I would call like a studio type voicing. I could actually see this used, as a sort of in-ear, like a monitoring tool.
Yeah,
it's quite a bit flatter than our other earphones. That's correct. It's not like more of like a slight V. It's more of a flatter type, far more accurate, I think, than a sort of more of a V shape situation.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Brian, who goes by Axel Cloris, he works here at HeadFi HQ. I don't know if he's actually tried it yet, because again, we were working on a fairly short time frame, and I kind of hogged all 3 models and listened to them myself first. So now I'm gonna let the other guys hear them. But I have a feeling he tends to prefer like a more neutral tuning. He likes a little bit of a more flat tuned bass and mid, and then he likes treble sparkle. Like, I think this is going to be like right up his alley. For me, I really enjoy it as a neutrally tuned piece, but I'm not going to lie, I'm not a crazy audiophile bass head, but I definitely prefer probably a little bit more than a little higher than flat bass. So Brian and I, like, a lot of times, like, when I listen to something, I can usually tell what he's going to like. He can tell something I'm going to like. We tease each other about it all the time because we don't often agree on the same earphones. But I like this one as a neutral piece, the Era, and I have a feeling he's going to really like this. I wish he had a chance to hear it before this so that I could comment on that.
I really like the nuance with it. It's very the subtle nuance of the you know, the detail is really fantastic, and the mid range is really nice. The high end, very nice. We're really excited about hearing people's impressions when they get it. And also, I want to talk a little bit about the use of titanium, because the shop that we have is fantastic, and these guys are like, hey, I think we can do your general body out of a billet titanium, and they just did a fantastic job. So we couldn't be happier with the shell, and we feel that the titanium shell, which is made out of a solid piece of titanium, is going to wear over time and look really nice because it's solid titanium.
I love titanium, and I love the shell. Actually, my pocket knife is titanium, but so I love titanium as a material choice, and it looks beautiful in this particular shell. I love the what are they? I'm colorblind, but I think they're black screws on a titanium, on the natural titanium color.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah,
that's pretty sick.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty awesome.
And they're light. Yeah, they're very light as well. So there's that.
Not much heavier than aluminum. Yep. A little bit heavier than aluminum.
Yeah, a little bit. What's the driver complement again? What are we looking at with this?
Just 7BA.
7BA.
4 low, right? 1 mid, 2 high.
And a crossoverless design.
Yep.
It is crossoverless?
No crossover.
Is that so that's kind of its relationship in some way to the Andromeda Gold, correct?
Yep, exactly.
That's right, and also that's part of the sculpting of like using our solid body interior design, right? Is because so we can do more shaping acoustically that way. So.
Right. See, to me, this is probably versus the Andromeda 2020. I would call it still neutral-ish, but really almost faster, leaner, right? It's and if that's kind of something that you want, and I think there are a lot of headfires that dig that profile, I think Axel Cloris or Brian's going to be one of them. I think he's going to really like the Era. So that's and when's this coming out?
That should be shipping June 18th.
Okay, so about a month from now.
Yeah, right. A little less than a month. Yep.
Well, I'm excited about that one. And then there's I'm not gonna lie though, the third model, the one we're gonna talk about now, is the one I'm most excited about. So because of all your in-ears I think you've ever done, I would say my favorite had been not the Andromeda. I love the Andromeda, but I think the Solaris. Love the Solaris. I love the way you used, which now let's talk about. So we're transitioning. I want to talk about the Solaris 2020. That's the third of the 3 models you're launching. And the Solaris is my favorite. I love the fact that it uses dynamic, electrodynamic driver for low, but you always showed tremendous restraint in how you voiced it with that. I mean, you have some other pieces you've done in the past that were just like boom, like a lot of, Solaris. Yeah, there you go, Vega in the past, yeah, right. But and this one has quite a nice sized dynamic driver, but you've used it. And I've said this before I think on some of the preview videos, with tremendous restraint. But yet it still has body, though, that I dig. Like, there's enough body. I love the way the tuning, the way you've gotten But with the Solaris 2020, it's similar to me to the whole Andromeda 2020 thing from a sonic standpoint. You did the same thing. I don't know if it's to do with the boot, the design inside, and we'll show the internal view again here. I don't know how much that is to do with that. I'll let you speak to that and the tuning that you did using that. But the big deal may be the chassis size.
The small deal.
Yeah. Small deal. I love the original Solaris. I'm not going to lie, until it was big. It's kind of like I like the Sony IER Z1R, but a lot of the times I just don't use it. I go to the, you and I have talked about that one, Ken, when we were in Japan. I like the IER Z1R. I have one. It's long story. We were laughing because we I guess you could say we got them at the same time. We bought them at the same time in Japan. But I don't use it as often as I might otherwise because it's big. And so I like the IER Z1R, and I like the Solaris. But when it comes to Sony, I tend to use the IER M9 more than the IER Z1R, just because The fit, I prefer the Solaris to the Andromeda, but would occasionally use the Andromeda instead of the Solaris just because of fit. Now you have a Solaris in the 2020 that now I have that fit. So now I get the Solaris that sounds even better than the original Solaris. You know, I haven't really done direct comparisons to the Solaris Limited Edition yet. I got to try that. But I get the Solaris sound in a chassis that fits my ear really, really well. So I'm going to let you guys introduce the Solaris 2020 because this to me of the three is my favorite. The Solaris was already my favorite of your line before. This is my favorite. So tell us about the 2020.
Well, that was the big thing, is like everyone loved the Solaris. I mean, it was pretty universal. However, the only thing, there's a but there, but it's quite big. And so I guess this early last winter, Caleb's like, look, we gotta fix this. We gotta shrink it. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way we can shrink it. There's so much crap in there. There's big giant 10 millimeter diamond driver speaker.
That's a big driver, yeah.
A bunch of BAs, and the assembly is like, it's just a engineering nightmare. And so again, I went back to Volleyball, who's our engineer, and Ben, who are just those guys are just wizards. And somehow they were able to shrink all that stuff down into a monolithic single boot. It's amazing. These guys are incredible, and they did such a great job. And then on top of that, we were able to sort of improve the tuning a little bit. But
I agree on that one.
Yeah, so we were really, again, trying to make things. We're trying to be better at our craft and make a better product. And Caleb was like, "Look, we got to fix the size issue. It's too big." And so
yeah, I mean, it was a concern I think that everyone had. I mean, for me, like, I love the Solaris also, but it's like, when an earphone starts, not looking right or feeling odd, then it's challenging. So when we're using the internal acoustic space to make it sound how it does, right? So by changing the size, you're changing the sound. And so that was where it's starting to, obviously we couldn't make it smaller because, the shape was the sound, right?
Right,
right. Yeah, and so that's where the challenge of like trying to basically scrap it, then put it back together, and to see how small we could get the whole thing, and I think, it really turned out well. I think the thing reads a lot smaller. We changed some of the angles. I think it just feels just much more, I don't know, it's a lot more user-friendly. I know the original one, a lot of people, it does fit many people's ears, but it's sort of a toss-up, it's a coin toss. Whether
it fits my ear. The original fits my ear. The IER Z1R from Sony fits my ear.
Yeah.
It's just that they're big enough, though.
It's a psychological factor. It's a psychological factor too. I mean, you have this.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. And so for me, like, yeah. So this doesn't have any of that though. So one of the things I was worried about with the 2020. So okay, I have not compared. We measured this. I haven't the Era. I think I measured the Andromeda on both the 45CA and the 5128. You guys haven't seen them yet. I measured the Solaris 2020, I think, also on both fixtures, but I didn't have a chance to measure the Era on the 5128 yet. So anyways, I'll show you guys the measurements when we're done with this call. I'll try to pull them up. And then, but so I haven't compared the Solaris 2020 to the previous Solaris measurement. That said, I've heard both, obviously, because I've spent a lot of time with the previous Solaris. And the one thing, the same thing sort of applies here relative to the Andromeda 2020 again. I just feel like I'm getting better articulation out of it. One of the things I worried when I saw the smaller chassis was that, because I don't know, I don't design IEMs, I don't know how much that does or doesn't have anything to do, it has to do with imaging. I was worried that maybe it might affect the imaging somehow, not necessarily because it was smaller, just because it was different. But it still images beautifully. That's, to me, one of the strengths of the Solaris. One of several strengths is it images, in my opinion, beautifully, wide. I don't even know how a designer gets that to happen or if it's just happenstance. But whatever the case may be, whether you intended it or not, at least I'm happy to report it's still here, even in a smaller chassis. I was a little concerned about that when you told me it was going to be smaller.
Sure, yeah. We were concerned about that too.
Yeah.
I think we improved the mid-range quite a bit on the new one.
Yeah.
No, it's articulate. I mean, I think it's more articulate than the original Solaris. for sure. I haven't actually, like I said, I haven't compared it to the limited edition back and forth yet. That's something I think I'm going to need to do. I'm curious. But anything you can say about how you'd characterize the sonic differences?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you pretty much nailed it. I mean, the big thing is the size is different and the sound is not much different. I mean, if there was a headline, you know, the sound is improved. So I think that you can say that, you know, for sure. The sound is improved. But I mean, the main thing here is we were effectively recreating the Solaris and trying to maintain its awesome signature, you know, like sort of the essence of what makes it. You know, along the way and spending that much time thinking about it and working with it, it did improve. So there's no doubt about that. And also the fact that we made a special edition Solaris on the interim as well, you know, which every time we go, you know, pop open the hood and start messing around, you know, I think that we come away with a better earphone. So
yeah, I think piling on, I think the Solaris SE and the Solaris 2020, that we took cues from that.
Yeah.
So there are more similarities between the Solaris SE and the 2020 than there is with the regular Solaris and the 2020. So there were some cues that we took from that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I can believe that based on, I haven't done the direct comparison between the two, but based on, you know, we have the Solaris SE or the limited edition here, and thank goodness we didn't miss that one. And love that piece, but this is definitely, like, just to me, again, as you said, Caleb, I think the biggest news is just the fit. It's like a Solaris that fits. It still sounds like a Solaris, but it does sound, again, more articulate to me in comparison between the two. I'm guessing that has, again, that's to do maybe with the boot and the tuning you did in it, or maybe there's tweaks. I don't know. You tell me. But it's still a Solaris very much. But it fits. So you know, again, of your line, this is my favorite piece, and that just has been to me really made more so by the fit. Now, you know, for like it would almost be as if Sony with the IER Z1R, which I also love, if they made a smaller version of that, I'd be all over it as well, because sometimes that's what I want to hear as well. But you've done it on your line with this, yeah.
Yeah, I love
It's also all black. It's an all black PVD, so it's a little bit more, you know, low key. The PVD is very, very durable.
Yeah.
And so we're really, really happy with the fit and finish of the new model.
yeah, it's really
So
understated.
I don't have to freak out. I don't have to freak out every time they clack together. It should hold up pretty well. All right.
Yeah, it could be really robust the whole time, you know, and really we were going for more austere aesthetics, you know, on the new products, you know, they're really sort of understated, and we focused really on the, you know, refinement of the internal engineering, you know, more than sort of the glitz on the outside. So, yeah.
Well, kudos to you. I love this. This is my new favorite IEM I think you've ever done, for all the reasons. So the Solaris 2020 is my top choice. I'm going to predict that Brian's going to like the Era, but we'll have to see. I think it'll be a toss-up between the Era and the Andromeda 2020 for him. But for me, no doubt, the Solaris 2020. So let's talk about, again, when they're going to be available. Andromeda 2020.
Yeah, so that will start shipping next week, right? So that's May 21st, okay? And then if you're anywhere else in the world, it's most likely you will be able to buy it fairly soon online. And then as retail opens, you know, there's that. Then Era is back a couple weeks, and so we're looking at June 18th right now. So that's, you know, a couple weeks after they start shipping, you know, Era will be out.
And then Solaris 2020, again, will be same time as Andromeda?
That's right, yeah. Yep, next week. Yep. We're going to start shipping those, both Andromeda and Solaris 2020, start shipping May 14th. Era, June 18th. So we're really excited about it. And, you know, we're operating under unusual circumstance. So,
Yeah, I bet.
you know, we're doing our best with, you know, what we can. So everyone at our shop has really been doing an awesome job of pitching in and, you know, working oddly right now to make this happen. So
Yeah.
Yeah, these are these are certainly unusual times. Yeah. This is the first time I've seen Joe and Brian at once in a very long time, actually. So, so it was nice to see them, and I miss them. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm just so glad that we had a chance to use them early and listen to them. Yeah, I think these are going to do very well. Again, my favorite is this one, and I'll be curious to see what the feedback is on from the rest of the community.
Yeah, likewise. And we really appreciate you having us, and we're also very excited and anxious to see hear people's feedback, and we're it's going to be great. We're really looking forward to the forum and what people have to say about the new model. So we're really,
and they'll be talking, so just pay
really
attention.
excited. Yeah, really excited about the lineup. So cool.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much again for taking the time.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe. Stay healthy, boys.